So I gotta come clean. I reinstalled Overwatch 2 again, but this time for the last time. It's not my fault, man. Marvel Rivals is coming out for a bit more, so I gotta wait until then. And they're releasing a new tank here, so like, they basically made me do it, you know?
I have been called. I must answer.
But let's talk a little bit about Hazard, because I think he perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with Overwatch 2 in 2024. The first thing that we saw of Hazard was a cinematic, and I have a video, you might have seen it, it did a little well, about my problems with the cinematics in Overwatch 2, and just the general lack of care the Overwatch story has gotten as a whole moving forward. And to quote myself from 2 months ago a little bit, if you understand how budgets for this stuff work, you know that the budget for cinematics has been eaten up by the budget for advertisements. You know that they fired the in-house studio because they saw that they could make more money off of making advertisements to sell their skin packs than they ever could making these animations. This cinematic doesn't change anything I said. First of all, it's even shorter than the Juno cinematic, which I was making fun of for being too short. It's even cheaper looking, and I think it honestly damages Hazard as a character. Because first off, his design is not good. He looks like the weird love child of David Martinez and a Needler. Tear it down! A goon from a game that teaches you how to parry. Like a mini-boss that shows up, you know? Or like a D-list arcane character. He truly leaves nothing to the imagination with how boring he looks. Which sucks, because he has some pretty cool concept art and stuff surrounding him. But then the comic came out. And some people on my TikTok were telling me that the comic actually does a lot more to characterize him than the cinematic does. So I watched this comic. And I gotta be honest, I like this Hazard, freak, whatever, a lot more than the cinematic version of him. You know what would have probably been a better choice? If they did a full-on animated cinematic for this new character that was the comic plus the short. And this is where I come to realize that was the same thing they did with Juno. Look, Blizzard, you're not getting past me here, or anyone else with a half-functioning brain, that you're taking what would have been a cinematic or a short from Overwatch 1, chopping it in half or 2/3, turning that into a voiced comic by the voice actor that actually tells you about the character, and then putting the little bit of action that would happen near the end of the cinematic as the cinematic. It's not getting past people that you outsourced your entire fucking animation budget to other companies and fired your entire in-house team. It's not getting past people that you're still putting that budget that you would use for cinematics more towards collab trailers than you are to the cinematic trailers. Actually, that might not even be fair to say. The My Hero collab came out and all they got was in-game skin stuff. They didn't even get the crazy cinematic stuff. I don't know if like crazy budget cuts have happened or it's just not a priority of the team, but the way that Overwatch is handling this stuff is off. But I've yapped long enough about that in this video and in a whole separate video, so if you want to hear more about that, check that out. But let's talk about Hazard as a tank. When I say that this is everything wrong with Overwatch in its current state, that is completely divorced from Hazard's actual gameplay in the game. Because Hazard is really fun! Like, he is a very interesting and novel take on a dive tank. I like him a lot. He is built around disruption, which actually fits very well with his character of being punk, and he disrupts through damage, which is something that is kinda not seen outside of like Ramatra's ultimate in terms of abilities that tanks have. Most of them clear space in a much more literal sense. They move people around, or they have a lot of damage up close, or tools to cut people off from their team. Hazard's interesting because he moves himself and brings the damage to you, and in doing that spreads out your team with every ability in his kit. but he's also built around kind of trapping you with his tiny little Mei wall he's got. He's a really fun kid. He's very enjoyable to play. The biggest hindrances to him being fun to play really center around the fact that, again, Overwatch is 5v5, at least currently, and it feels like Hazard is designed mostly for 6v6. He very much does feel like an off tank or a main tank. I don't know how they would rebalance him to put him in Overwatch 1, but I could see them going a bit more of the he gets less damage and keeps a lot of the health and defensive abilities, or he keeps the damage and loses a lot of the health. Either which way, he'd be really fun to play, and I'm excited to see what they would do with him. But also at the same time, there's this giant elephant in the room. A giant elephant called Marvel Rivals. See, Overwatch really needed a slam dunk to hit this winter because their first real hero shooter competition is also dropping the same month, the same week even, as Hazard is. And when that's happening, a big question comes up of, is he enough to be competition for Rivals? Because I'm going to get more into this next week, but Rivals has been swinging lately. There are a lot of characters coming out, a lot of maps, and a lot of awesome quality of life things that are coming to the game. They're very open and transparent about everything, even like limitations of the dev team, in a way which Overwatch sometimes does well, but usually doesn't. I don't think I know many people who have played Rivals and came away from it thinking poorly of it. I know lots of people that have hated on the game before playing it, but not many who hate on the game after. And all that's to say that Overwatch has some real stiff competition coming up, and their choice to combat that is a sub 2-minute trailer? That's really all we got? It's that? And while I do still like Hazard, he very much falls into a lot of the same archetypes as other tanks or other new Overwatch 2 characters. He is not really connected to the lore that much, aside from drinking the purple juice that Moira put on a map for some reason, which is some cool storytelling that intertwines him with other elements of the game. But how much are we really going to do this, you know? Name a character that's been added to Overwatch that didn't have a map-related Easter egg when they launched, or before they launched. I mean, they really all do. In terms of his build and his characterization in-game, he is another big buff, cocky tank, which is kinda all of them? I mean, we got Mauga, who's that way. We got Junker Queen, who's that way. Ramatra, not quite as much, but they're only releasing one new tank a year. And last year, we got a big buff, cocky tank. I mean, hell, even its hello animation is the same as Mauga's. I get that they're not the same character deep down, and I get they're really not the same character in terms of how they play. But it just feels like Overwatch is really completely lost it in terms of making these characters feel super unique in terms of their design, lore, and gameplay. The gameplay designers, they've still been cooking for the most part. When I came back to play Hazard for this test, I also got to play Juno for the first time because I haven't played Overwatch like that in months. And she's also really fun. She feels very well designed. More often than not, the Overwatch devs do good designs, then they fuck up designs. The problem is when they fuck up designs, it stays that way forever. Because whenever Overwatch makes a mistake, it stays that way forever. I don't know how long it's going to be before we start seeing actual cinematics start to come back. I don't know how they're going to fuck up 6v6 coming back. Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to fuck up 6v6 coming back. Let's be honest. And I really just don't see that dog in them to even fight with Marvel Rivals. And I got a lot of people that say specifically that I'm just hating on Overwatch or that like I want it to fail, or even that I'm hyping up a game like Marvel Rivals because I want Overwatch to fail. It's actually kind of the opposite. In a perfect world, we have both games and both games make the other one better. And I do think Overwatch as competition has made Marvel Rivals better. Like, we're talking about NetEase here. They would absolutely do a hero shooter cash grab with no semblance towards making an actually good and interesting game if they could. But because it's personal with Overwatch, with NetEase and Overwatch's history together, and because of the fact that Overwatch is kinda in the shitter, they have the motivation to actually make an interesting and fun game. Meanwhile, it feels like Overwatch is still fucking resting on their laurels over here. Just making the same mistakes over and over again. Feels like everything's a profit game with Overwatch, and I'm kind of sick of it. I'd love to see this game go back to the good old days, succeed in the areas it used to fail, continue to bring in characters that are both designed beautifully, with awesome unique gameplay loops, awesome lore and backstory, good cinematics, actually good maps, because what the fuck is Clash? Oh my god, that mode sucks so hard. And actually get some wins for once in their life. But until that happens, I'm not going back to Overwatch like that. I don't think I'm still at the point where I don't want to touch it with a fucking 10-foot pole. No, I've enjoyed my time jumping on every couple weekends now, playing a couple hours of it and getting off. But it's not a game that I want to get on, and that makes me pretty sad. I used to rush home from school to play Overwatch. I used to skip my classes in college to play Overwatch. I used to sit there scrolling through every single comment on my TikTok trying to find interesting things to talk about because I just love talking about it so much. And I just don't feel that way anymore. Hazard is cool, and he makes me want to play him a little bit, but he's not going to make me come back when Marvel Rivals is out. 6v6 coming back is nice, but again, I don't know if I'm going to come back to play it if Marvel Rivals is out. I feel like I've been let down by this game so many times that getting my hopes up for anything is just stupid at this point. I feel like a video that I made from 2 months ago about how bad Overwatch has gotten, that I gotta be honest, I really hoped would age like milk, has only been justified with how lackluster this game has been. I really do want this game to succeed, but it feels like not only are the odds stacked against it, but it feels like their heart isn't even in it at this point. I don't know, man. It's really sad to see. But what do you think about Overwatch 2? What do you think about Hazard? Were his cinematics too bad to throw you off of him as a character? Have you enjoyed playing him? Playing into him? Is he enough to get you to load up Overwatch when Marvel Rivals is out at the same time? Are you still skeptical about a game like Marvel Rivals? Do you think I complain too much? You don't need to answer that one. What do you think Overwatch needs to do to get back to its glory days? I truly want to hear more thoughts on this. But anyways, have a good Monday. Have a good Thanksgiving if you celebrate that. And be ready, because next week we're going to be going over all of the stuff that Marvel Rivals has added since the last beta. Maybe just all the stuff in Marvel Rivals, period. And then we get to break out the beginner tips videos for Marvel Rivals and coast that train into the sunset.
You should know that, this character actually counterpicks this one.
I'm just kidding. We aren't doing any of that fucking cornball stuff on here. But the educational stuff will be back if you like that from the TikTok. And hopefully it's a fun time, you know? I have high hopes for this game. And honestly, I'm cautiously optimistic that Overwatch will start to get their shit together in 2025. Maybe they can beg Big Daddy Microsoft for a couple more bucks so they can rehire their animation team. I don't know.